Hey y'all, it's Ashley at Bookish Rum and I'm back with another video. As you all know, every month in my Patreon, I have a tier where patrons can vote for a video they would like to see me do every single month. So this month's pick was for me to do the unpopular opinions tag, which I am super excited to do. I actually have never thought about doing this tag, and when I put it up as one of the options, it definitely was one of the highly selected choices. So we're gonna go ahead and jump in. This original tag was created by the Book Archer, so I will make sure that I leave her original video down in the description box below. So the first question on this list is a popular book or series that you didn't like. So this is so crazy because there's currently like a reread going on by Penguin, and it is for the Ember in the Ashes series, an Ember in the Ashes series, whilst I wasn't here. I did not like that book. I gave it 2 stars. I actually have done a full review, I believe a video review on this. If not a video review, I have done a full written review, and I just didn't care for the characters at all. I found them annoying. I did not find them dynamic or interesting. I didn't really find the story itself that interesting. And like I said, I think I gave that first book 2 stars. I just was not feeling it. And this is definitely a book that everybody seemingly loves except me. I'm like that one soul who's like, I just don't like it. And I actually unhaul the books because I just have no intention of rereading it or reading the series. You know, the 4th book is coming out, or if it hasn't already come out, and a lot of people enjoy it, but this one just wasn't for me at all. And the next question is a popular book or series that everyone else seems to hate but you love. So this one was actually quite hard for me. I could not really find a popular book that I loved and everyone hated, because I think I have a tendency to read a lot of backlist stuff that is not necessarily always popular. So I went with a book that is not one that seems to be very well known, but has a lower rating on Goodreads, but it's one that I really enjoyed, and that's Love Boat Taipei. And I think that when I was going through the reviews, especially people that I'm friends with on Goodreads, a lot of the reviews were geared towards the fact that it was too much drama, that it really wasn't good writing. And I do admit that this book has had its flaws, but honestly, I read it twice this year. I read it once in the springtime, and I read it again just this month. So this is one that I'm gonna say it seems like people are more like mediocre or they don't like it, whereas I'm more on the end of the spectrum where like I actually did really enjoy it, because for me to read a book twice in 1 year means that there was something about it that I really liked. The next question is a love triangle where the main character ended up with the person you did not want them to end up with, or an OTP that you don't like. So I am going to be talking about a pairing that takes place in Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. If you have not read this book, I do not want to spoil you, so if you want to wait until I stop holding up this book, that'll be your cue to know that I am done talking about spoilers. So in this book, I absolutely hated the pairing between Zele and Inan. I thought that it was completely unnecessary, and I believe that the relationship is even more so unnecessary in the second book. It is just not a pairing that I felt like was really needed. If you want to be honest, I really do feel like there should have been a different pairing that happened in this book, particularly between Zele and Amari. I believe that they would have been a better pairing, and they seem like the true pairing, but Zele was placed with Inan, and it just didn't make any sense. He's very much so like hot and cold. On one hand, he's like invested in his dad, then he's kind of halfway committed to her, and they just didn't seem like a good couple. I think that when they got together, they lost the characteristics that made them the characters that they were, and I just didn't particularly enjoy them at all. I I didn't care for their relationship, and I didn't care for the relationship in the second book, and I wish that Adeyemi would have went in a completely different direction with the characters and the romance in this book. Alright, so the next question is a popular book genre that you hardly reach for. So I really do feel like, to answer this question, I'm gonna have to say science fiction. I am trying to read more science fiction in terms of looking like at SFF as a broad umbrella. I definitely fall more towards the fantasy side of things, and I have started to want to read more science fiction. I know that I read Escaping Exodus this year and really enjoyed it, and it wasn't my first science fiction book, but it was a book that made me want to pick up more science fiction. And I'm not sure why I find the genre as a whole intimidating, but it just is very intimidating to me, and I'm hoping that in the future, especially like going into 2021, I'm more inclined to pick up more science fiction books than what I have in the past. The next question is a popular or beloved character that you do not like. And for me, this is definitely going to be Junie B. Jones. So I found this to be a very interesting conversation to have with people. A lot of people remember Junie B. Jones's books from their childhood, and they adore Junie B. Jones. And I actually read the first 4 books in the Junie B. Jones series last year, and Junie is a bitch, y'all. She is so awful to the other kids. She's mean, she's heartless, she's cruel, she thinks she's better than everybody else, and I know that it always surprises people when I talk about Junie B. Jones in that way, because she is a kid, but she is such an unlikable character, and it's so hard for me to connect with why people enjoy her as a character, because I sure do not like her. I think that she's just a horrible individual. I think she's horrible. She's horrible. So I'm interested though in exploring the rest of the books. I think I may do a project with that next year, but for the most part, like, I think that people adore her, and I'm one of those few individuals who's like, I just don't like her, child or not. Like, I don't like Junie B. Jones at all. The next question is a popular author that you can't seem to get into. And for this, I'm going to say 2 specific authors that are booktube darlings, and that is Sarah J. Maas and Cassandra Clare. And it's not that I haven't read any of their books, because I've read probably about 5 or 6 of Cassandra Clare's, and I've read, I think, 3 or 4 of Sarah J. Maas's. And when I say I can't get into, is that I don't feel the same pressure to read their books as soon as they drop. I am not trying to buy their books as soon as they come out. I'm not caught up with any of their series, and I don't feel this need to be rushed to keep up with their series. And I think that it kind of pulls me away from that group within our community that really enjoys those 2 authors, or are huge fans of those authors and their works. And it's not to say that I'll never read any more of their works, but those are 2 authors that for some reason I just can't commit myself to them, and I have no interest in rushing to finish anything and catching up. And I want to catch up, and I have been reading a lot of their stuff because I know that my teens really like their books and they talk about them, and I think that part of what I do is to really be well versed in the conversations that they're having. And granted, I don't have to do this, but it's something that I think would be fun for me to do, but I just don't feel that pressure. I don't feel that pressure, and I know that Cassandra Clare has like a new book coming out like every year, or 2 books coming out every year. I know like Sarah J. Maas has another book coming out next year in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I'm just kind of like, that's cool, but deep down, I really just don't care. It's just not a big deal to me. Question number 7 is a popular book trope that you're tired of seeing, and I'm gonna change this up a little bit because I actually just read this interesting article by We Need Diverse Books, and why, particularly in the age categorization of YA, it's important to stop saying overusing because of the lack of access that BIPOC authors have had, or other marginalized groups have had, but particularly BIPOC authors, and how they don't have the same access to publishing as white heterosexual cisgender authors do. So when we say that we're seeing these tropes that are overused, it kind of puts those authors at a disadvantage, because then they feel like they can't use those tropes even though they've never been given the opportunity to use those tropes. So we're allowing white, cisgendered, and heterosexual individuals to continuously use tropes and then remove the capability for anyone else to use those tropes because they've already been done by a certain population. It's just a really interesting article, so I'll make sure I link that article down below. So I'm going to change my wording a little bit for this. I'm going to say these are tropes that I don't particularly like. And those two tropes are going to be love triangles as well as the absent parent. So with love triangles, I feel like in this day and age in 2020, they're unnecessary. I don't feel like they're needed. I think they create unnecessary conflict, and it doesn't add entertainment value to the book. I feel like it actually detracts from the story, and I think that it's okay to have a book where a protagonist just has one love interest, or they have no love interest at all. Not saying that it's a trope that, once again, I want to make sure I clarify that I'm not saying that these are tropes that are overused. These are just tropes that I just don't like. I just don't see the benefit of having love triangles. And with the second trope of the absent parent, for me, I think that particularly is especially in YA books, it really detracts from the reality of a situation. It makes books feel a little unreal when you have parents who are absent, maybe not even just physically, but they may be absent emotionally and mentally to the situations that are happening with the teens in the book. And it's like certain things should not be happening with adequate parental supervision. So I don't like that trope, particularly in my view, because it's not realistic for that to happen. So those are two tropes that I just don't like. Will I continue to read books that have those tropes? Most likely, because they are used very commonly. There's just ones that I'm not particularly fond of. And the next question is a popular series that you have no interest in reading. And for me, this is going to be the Folk of the Air trilogy by Holly Black. I actually have an arc of the first book, The Crow Prince, and I don't care enough. I know that the fourth book just came out, and I know that a lot of people enjoy it, but I just have no interest at this moment. I don't find the premise or the books to be appealing. I have a coworker who absolutely loves them. She's so excited that there's this fourth book coming out. She absolutely adores Holly Black, and I listen to her and she tries to explain the appeal, especially of this series in particular, and I just don't get it. I don't think that this is a story for me necessarily. That's not to say that I will never read it. I just have no interest in reading it right now at this moment. And the last question is, the saying goes, the book is always better than the movie, but what movie or TV show adaptation do you prefer more than book? And for me, I always say that I will always go with the Hunger Game movies over the books, which is so crazy because this question typically would have been very, very hard for me, because I always prefer the book to the movie or TV show adaptation. And that usually is because there's a different time frame set when you're looking at TV and movies, and you really can't adapt a work to its fullest extent. And there are details and aspects of the story that just go missing, not because they want to ruin it, but because they legitimately just don't have the time and space to do it. And for me, I just dislike the Hunger Game books. I just didn't like the writing. I thought that it was just boring, surprisingly. I just had no interest in it. And I only read the first book and I was like, yeah, I don't like this. I'm not going to read the rest of the series. But I have seen every single one of the Hunger Game movies, and I enjoy every single one of the Hunger Game movies. and this is the first, probably, and only time that I will ever be in this situation, but I definitely will always choose the movies over the books. All right, y'all, so that is it for the unpopular opinions tag. I will be sure to leave the questions below as well. That way, if you want to, you can answer them in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications to see when I'm uploading. If you're interested in supporting my channel, all the links will be down in the description box. If you're interested in following me on social media, all the links will be down in the description box as well. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day.